This is Mac OS Ken.
A look at consumers and iPhone 15's opening weekend. Analysts analyze wait times and a couple of issues in iOS 17. It is Monday, the 25th of September, 2023. I'm Ken Ray, and this is news from Mac OS Ken, brought to you by yours truly and sponsored by BetterHelp. Online therapy. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/macosken. This show is also supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macosken. In 2015, then head of Apple Retail Angela Ahrendts is said to have said, "The days of waiting in line and crossing fingers for a product are over for our customers." To be fair, the comments were made ahead of the launch of Apple Watch, a brand new device for which Apple expected demand to greatly exceed supply. Still, a piece from Wired way back then saw this as Apple's way going forward. While this strategy may disappoint some excited Apple devotees, the piece said, it allows Apple to balance the enthusiasm that the store launches generate with the relative calm of online shopping. I don't know that I know anyone who went to an Apple store on Friday, but I wouldn't be surprised after some of this past weekend's news. Apple Fifth Avenue in NYC had lines, and a couple of famous folks. The piece from iLounge says Apple Senior VP of Worldwide Marketing Greg Joswick and Apple CEO Tim Cook were working the door at New York's Glass Tabernacle Friday morning. No fights reported from Apple Store in the Big Apple, though a piece from Cult of Mac says there were scuffles at the Mall of the Emirates in Dubai. Hundreds camped overnight there, according to the report. While a Twitter post spoke of fights, video purported to be of the scene showed pushing, shoving, and a serious need for crowd control, but no fisticuffs. News in the same piece of big lines in other locales, noting throngs at Apple stores in India. The Cult of Mac piece says there were also long lines and big crowds in Boston, Milan, Paris, Tokyo, and Bangkok. Hundreds of people waited outside Apple Regent Street in London before it opened at 8 a.m. I seriously thought we were done with the lines. Friday morning, just ahead of the iPhone 15 launch, I told you of an update that would be waiting for iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max. I'm not sure whether I misread the Mac Rumors report or it's been changed, but it turns out that iOS 17.0.2 was an important update for every iPhone 15 up and down the line. With no phones out yet to receive the update, it was unclear late Thursday night, early Friday morning what the update would do. Now a piece from CNET says the iOS update fixes issues preventing smooth transfer of data from older iPhones to any of the 4 models in the new iPhone 15 series, a typically painless process that could be disrupted if the newest Apple phones aren't updated first. CNET says the prompt to update was supposed to appear while folks were setting up their new iPhones. Here's hoping it did, and that it went smoothly for you. Shiny happy people with phones from iPhone 15's Pro End may be unhappy with how unshiny their phones are in places. No big deal. It's just your oily fingers. According to a piece from Mac Rumors, Apple indicates in the support document that Fingerprints might temporarily alter the color of the titanium frame on the iPhone 15 Pro and iPhone 15 Pro Max. According to the support doc, for the Pro phones, the oil from your skin might temporarily alter the color of the outside band. Wiping your iPhone with a soft, slightly damp, lint-free cloth will restore the original look. Hey, maybe you could get one of them FineWoven cases for it. I told you Friday of Verge writer Allison Johnson's displeasure with her FineWoven case, particularly with the scratches her editor put in the thing that no amount of rubbing or buffing would take out. Really need to see one of these things in person now. It turns out FineWoven is literally a fine weave. Another piece from Mac Rumors says the folks at iFixit have taken one apart, which they didn't need to do to look at the surface, but okay. According to the report, using a digital microscope, iFixit viewed the FineWoven fabric at 52x and 490x magnification, confirming that it is indeed made up of bundles of tightly woven fibers. Each fiber is much smaller than a strand of hair, measuring at about 6 microns thick. Now, once I read that part, I assumed that Johnson's editor at The Verge had actually torn or severed those threads, but iFixit seems to argue against that as a possibility. Quoting Mac Rumors again, when the FineWoven fabric is scratched, the fibers don't break, but the scratch does cause the affected fibers to reflect light irregularly, which means there is a visual mark. The softness of the material also means that items in a pocket with the case can leave an indentation. Also, it is fabric, so it will stain. Be careful. Hey, do they sell cases for FineWoven cases? Still curious to hear your thoughts on your FineWoven case. Like, dislike, on the fence? Send me an email, info@macoSken.com. If you glanced any Apple news over the weekend, there's a good chance you saw lots of headlines about how much more breakable iPhone 15 Pro is than iPhone 14 Pro. A particularly incendiary headline from Cult of Mac said iPhone 14 Pro trounces trashed iPhone 15 Pro in first drop test. I used the incendiary headline to highlight the calm, rational headline from Apple Insider. YouTube drop tests are a terrible indication of iPhone durability. The thing's got glass on both sides, for crying out loud. Drop it just right, or just wrong, depending on how you look at it, and it's going to break. If that worries you, maybe consider some sort of coverage or care for your phone. Also, maybe you get one of them FineWoven cases for it. More news in a moment, but first a word from today's sponsor, BetterHelp. Online therapy. Ever had thoughts that just will not let you go? Will not let you go to sleep? Will not let you go on with other things? You can keep talking to yourself about them, but that's probably just going to keep you spinning. Talking them through with somebody else is a better way to go. Somebody like a therapist with BetterHelp. Therapy gives you a place to do that, to talk through whatever's going round and round in your head, so you can get out of your head and find some mental and hopefully emotional peace. A therapist isn't going to fix everything, but the right therapist can help you find the solutions you're looking for. Now, when it comes to finding a therapist, I like the way BetterHelp does it. You answer a few questions and they match you with a therapist who works on the kind of thing you are trying to work through. And if they're not the right therapist for you, you can change any time at no additional cost. Get a break from your thoughts with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/macOSken today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/macOSken. BetterHelp.com/macOSken. Want to get back in line for iPhone? Wedbush analyst Daniel Ives has been holding our place. Apple 3.0 ran part of a note he wrote on launch day last Friday, noting long lines seen in China, Europe, and the US. According to the analyst, the big focus of consumers at the Midtown Apple store was Pro Max early on, as his firm believes the scarcity of iPhone 15 Pro Max is starting to build throughout the supply chain. Is that the work of the fancy camera? Actually, and this will shock you, Ives says it's all about the pent-up demand. We estimate 250 million iPhones have not upgraded in 4+ years, massive carrier discount and the camera technology and chips in iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max are catalyzing consumers to upgrade. Calling the Pro Max a clear standout on this cycle, IVE says wait times for those have slipped to somewhere between late October to mid-November. Of course, clamoring for Apple's biggest, priciest iPhone is driving up iPhone ASPs in IVE's estimation. He puts those in the roughly $925 range today, up $100 over the last 12 to 18 months. Mr. Ives has an outperform rating on Apple shares. His price target on the shares is $240. Seeing something similar is Evercore analyst Amit Daryanani. Apple 3.0 ran part of a note he wrote over the weekend. According to that note, the data points to robust demand for the iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max, although slightly weaker on Plus versus last year, which could have a positive impact on mix alongside higher volumes. Daryanani has an outperform rating on Apple shares. His price target on the shares is $210. Interest in / wait times for iPhone 15 Pro Max are building towards a great December quarter for Apple. Anyway, that is the thinking of TF International analyst Ming-Chi. He posted launch day reactions on Medium on launch day. The way he sees it, Apple's fourth quarter 23 iPhone revenue and profit will likely be better than expected and easily achieve year-on-year growth based on early iPhone sales results survey, thanks to better product mix and shipment growth. Of course, it would be difficult for Apple to miss beating last year's December quarter. That was the one that saw Foxconn's iPhone City plant in Zhengzhou basically shut down for most of November and part of December due to COVID concerns. As with the rest of the analysts, iPhone 15 Pro Max looks to be the star of this year's show as far as Ming-Chi is concerned. Quoting his post, from the telephoto camera module orders, which represents the most significant bottleneck in the supply chain, the iPhone 15 Pro Max order for this year has been revised upward to 35 million units versus 28 million shipments for the iPhone 14 Pro Max last year, serving as the primary growth driver for Apple's iPhone business in the December quarter. While orders for iPhone 15 Plus appear to be surprising to the upside, the analyst is less impressed with orders for iPhone 15 and iPhone 15 Pro. He thinks Apple will either cut the price on those devices or cut production of them. I know which I'd bet, but nobody asked me. Here's something to check out in iOS 17, your privacy settings. 9to5Mac says Apple is investigating reports that those got reset for some people after updating last week. The security-focused developer team known as MOSK posted about the issue on Twitter. According to the report, they found that some people with significant locations and iPhone analytics turned off have seen them switch back on without permission and without notification after installing iOS 17. Definitely not a feature. The report says Apple has confirmed to 9to5Mac that these settings should not change after updating to iOS 17. The company says it is investigating the issue and reiterated its commitment to user privacy. If you want to check the status of those services on your phone, you can do so in Settings, then Privacy and Security, then Location Services, then System Service, which is the last option on that list. If you type right to left in iOS 17, your cursor may not be keeping up with you. A piece from Apple Insider says in languages such as Arabic and Hebrew, the cursor should move with the type right to left, same as it does in left to right languages. If I'm reading the issue correctly, it sounds like the cursor is on the right line, but it's just sort of sitting on the right side of the page, not moving with the text. Make no mistake. That's it. Just make no mistake. According to Apple Insider, while typing straight without edits, sentences and words come out normally, but you're typing blind when it comes to the cursor position. If you attempt to add a word in the middle of an already typed sentence, the new word will appear on the right-hand side at the start of the sentence. Backspacing is also a problem, since the cursor is treated as if it's on the right margin. Apple seems to be aware of the issue. No word on when it might be fixed. And finally today, a story that has nothing to do with iPhone and nothing to do with iOS. Apple Insider says we know who will headline the Apple Music Super Bowl 58 halftime show next year. It's Usher. Okay, it's not really a story when I do it, but they did a whole thing. Super Bowl 58 is scheduled for Sunday, the 11th of February, 2024. That leaves plenty of time for plenty more stories about Usher and the halftime show. macOS Can, brought to you by me and sponsored by BetterHelp. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/macOSCan. This show is also supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macOSCan. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media, online at backbeatmedia.com. You can reach me a couple of ways. Info at macoscan.com or call 716-780-4080. Until next time, that is news from macOS Can. I'm Ken Ray.
Ciao.